We've all been there. It's 2 a.m., you just finished the last page of your book, closed the cover, and now you're wrecked. Or elated, shocked, frustrated, distraught, or maybe a combination of so many emotions you can't put a name to what you're feeling.
But there's an ache in your chest, and all you want to do is turn to someone who knows what you just went through, who you can talk about that favorite scene with, swap theories about the sequel, gush over the hottie your main character landed.
You might try to explain it to your significant other, suggest the book to a colleague, or swap a couple surface-level thoughts with a friend who read it years ago. But there's no one who truly gets it. No one who will tear each moment apart with you, put it all back together, and start the next great read by your side. But what if we told you that now there's someone who will?
I'm Brooke.
I'm Jamie.
I'm Elena.
And we're the High Ladies of the Book Court. Let's read your next favorite book together.
Hi guys! Welcome to our first episode of A Court in Mist and Fury, my personal favorite book probably ever written. We're going through the whole ACOTAR series as a reread. So if you're just plunging into this episode, you didn't watch the ACOTAR episodes, this is a true reread where we have already read all of the ACOTAR series through Silver Flames, and we will ruin things for you because we're specifically talking about it as a series. So if you haven't read it all and you don't like spoilers, which I would suggest just turn it off, just go read some books or look at any of our other episodes about other books that we won't spoil for you. But yeah, this is I'm being totally honest, this is probably my favorite book in the whole wide world. I don't know about you guys or where it ranks, but this is one of my faves.
It's like top
The
tier.
first time I read it, I did not like it.
Please say more.
I think we've talked about this before, but the first time I read it, I did skip to the end to see if she ended up back with Tamlin.
I actually don't know that we talked about this before. I know you did that with another book series and then got mad and stormed off. But so you read ACOTAR and then you were worried that she wasn't going to end up with Tamlin, and you just went right to the end of this book.
No, I read to where essentially we are now in Akamath, and was like, why is Tamlin being such a little brat? Like, he needs to get over his trauma, which is not a great mind. Rereading it, I'm like, oh, he has a lot of trauma. I understand. The first time I was like, how could he do this to Tamlin? I mean, how could he do this to Feyre? What the heck? He has to get over it, right? Why is there all this Rhys stuff? She's not going to end up with Rhys. So I went to the end, just to see.
Just a check. Just a quick check. Yeah. Elena is not opposed to spoilers. She, I think, thrives on spoilers, personally.
Absolutely. She has to know. So she will, move on ahead.
That's part of what makes it hard for me to do rereads a lot, because I feel like a lot of what drives me to finish a book is needing to know what happens. So it takes a good book for me to reread it, fully knowing what happens at the end.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I think for me, this reread has been so much fun because I've always listened to the books. I've never actually read them in person, and they're just these little one-liners that I'm just like, oh, Sarah, beautiful. How did I not get that the first time? But it's very subtle, and I think she does an amazing job. So that's what's propelling me through it, other than the fact that I just love this story and could probably just keep reading it ad nauseum.
Yeah. I read this, staying with ACOTAR, maybe in 2 days. I read it so fast that I didn't really take a moment to take in how sad and depressed Tamlin and Feyre were. So rereading it, I'm definitely more open-minded. I'm not oh, I hate Tamlin. It was just no, they're both suffering. It's just they're not communicating, and it's just disappointing. And I think that's part of the reason why their relationship had failed, minus the mating one.
The mating bond. Well, if you didn't shut it off, it's spoiled now. Can't stop it. But yeah, no, I like what you said, Elena, that this time, like the first time you read it, you were very much like, why is Tamlin treating Feyre like this? And this time you were saying that you feel a little more like, obviously he's going through some stuff. Like what did you see in there?
Yeah, I feel like the first time I was just like, this isn't in character. Like, why? Like, he needs to start treating her better. Versus, like, now it's like, oh, there is a lot of trauma. Like, yeah, he's not acting correctly, but they're just not meant to be with each other at this point. So, like, it's like as opposed to where I was like, it's Rhys. Now I'm like waiting for the Rhys parts.
Yeah. Always looking forward to every time he shows up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it definitely shows that he cares. A lot of his actions. And then that little scene with when Feyre hears more in the background, not realizing it was her, and saying like, "Oh, that went well." when he brought Feyre to I think it's the House of Wind.
Yeah, it's that first trip when it's more saying to Rhys like, "Oh, that went well." And yeah, like I was saying with like the one-liners, like, you know, you read it the first time, and if you don't know where it's going, it's very much like, "Oh yeah, oh that went well." Like, yeah, of course he just like kidnapped this girl and like took her to the night court. Like, of course that didn't go well, but it's like knowing the backstory now of like Rhys leaving the end of ACOTAR and like going back to the night court and like saying she's my mate to more, like one of his best friends, and like you just imagine the last 3 months of her like trying to piece him back together, and now this moment happens and she's like, well, that went well, like.
Well, and it's also interesting from the perspective of like seeing the differences that Sarah like so clearly ties between like Tamlin and Rhys. Like even like small things Sarah mentions, like Tam's friends, and how like she met them and like doesn't remember their names and doesn't care to remember their names because they're his friends. Versus like knowing that later in this book, Rhys's friends become her best friends. Like just seeing the differences there.
It's, yeah. Even and like this, so this is my third time through this book, and I didn't remember like how early he mentions Cassian and Az. Like there's that like first little like meeting that he's having with Moore about like how things are going, and like just like name drops the two of them. And you know, it's easy to just like wash that right from your brain, especially the first time, because you're like, I don't know who these people are, like random side characters, great. But yeah, it's like you already get the sense of like how much Rhys cares about the people that work with him, which is so different from how Tamlin feels. And like you get to the tithe and just like my skin crawls. It's just like the stark difference between like how Rhys runs a group of people and a nation, and how Tamlin does it is a little
Like Rhys
difficult.
is more open. Like he's not having private meetings. Like he lets Feyre overhear his conversations with Moore. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to note too, the difference between him and Tamlin. So like I think Rhys, again, he's open, but he's also like hiding his wings. I don't know if you guys picked up on that too. Like he doesn't want to scare her right away and everything. And it's just like one of those things like I know it's like, oh, he's like purposely trying to hide it.
Yeah,
Hide them.
I think too, it's like that is such an intimate part of who he is. It's something that he hides from literally everyone. Like no one outside of the Night Court realizes that he is like half Illyrian and has wings. And I think too, it's like, you know, it's like that emotional response. So he's always like Rhys is always trying to be in control and like not let on how he feels inside. And just again, like with the little lines of just like, you know, Rhys's like jaw twitching and just like, oh, his eyes darkened. And I was like, yeah, girl, it's because you're throwing shoes at him and you want to be with this other guy, you think. And he's just like standing there trying to figure out how he can possibly lose you. And just like seeing those little moments of his like I think twice, 2 or 3 times, it's like the dark outline of like wings behind him, and I'm like, yeah, it's because he is doing everything to just like hold it together.
Not spill the beans.
Poor Rhys, just want to give him a hug. Like, it'll work out, buddy, don't worry.
Yeah. So happy when Moore comes and takes her away. And it's like, ha, suck it, Tamlin. We don't have to see you for a bit.
Oh,
That was a tough scene when
every
he
time.
locks her in the house. Oh,
Every time. And I think, like, even somehow, again, even the third time reading it, I know what's coming, and it's still like this was the hardest. And I think it's like seeing, like, taking extra time with those little moments of Feyre constantly saying, like, she can't even go into certain rooms if there isn't enough light, or she can't escape through a window. Like, the fact that her trauma goes that deep, and then to have him lock her away, to just be so ignorant of what is going on with her because they don't talk about it, that he does like the absolute worst thing that he could possibly do. And I'm like, that's unforgivable, friend. Like, even if you didn't know about it, you should have. If you're going to marry this person, you should have known.
absolutely. And not even be receptive about talking about it either. It's
Right.
like it's like she's literally walking on eggshells. Like she can't ask him certain things without like trying to trigger him or something.
Mhm. And it's written so well, and that's what I noted this time through, is that, Feyre talks about, like, oh, well, like, he's getting up in the middle of the night just as much as I am, but, like, we've basically decided not to talk about it, so, like, we won't let Amarantha win. And I'm like, you can tell yourself that. You can delude yourself into thinking that's the reason, but it's because the two of you don't know how to communicate, and he refuses to meet you halfway. Like, and it's just
Hmm.
like time and time again, she's like, oh, like, I'm going to do this because it'll be a win for the spring court. Like, every single time she was like, wow, there's a lot wrong with this wedding and I don't really want to plan it, but like, it'll be the happiest day of my life, right? And like, so good for Tamlin and the spring court. And I'm like, sweetheart, if you're thinking about anyone other than yourself, like on your wedding day, if there are any other reasons other than I really want to be with this person for the rest of my life, maybe you shouldn't do it. Just a thought.
Oh, and all just like yeah, all for the wrong reasons. Like, oh, she saved the world, so that she doesn't feel like she needs to give up more of herself or something. But
Yeah.
ugh,
Yeah.
so sad.
Especially, I think, like, in the start of this book, it's so clear. Like, I think the thing that bothers me the most is that Tamlin and, like, Ianthe want to use her as a, like, statue. They're like, look at this perfect, beautiful woman who did this great thing, but, like, we're not going to tell her what's actually happening in the world. We're not going to tell her that we definitely know she has powers because we don't want her to use them. And we just want her to be pretty over here. And then Rhys, the minute he gets her alone, is like, there's a war. You definitely have powers. I'm going to teach you how to read and shield. And like, if you want to be on my side, let me know. But he's still like, there's still a part of him that is like, if she walks away from me, I'll have to live with it. I love him so much.
Love him. Love his lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. If that is our Tamlin Rhys conversation, we can always go back. I would desperately love to talk about Lucian. I think the eye roll. Elena, take it away. How are you feeling about our boy Lucian?
Lucian goes from BFF to a wet lymph noodle. Like, he is so disappointing throughout this book. This is the start of Sad Boy Lucian, and
Sad
it
boy
never
Lucian.
ends from here.
Yeah.
The loyalty. Ugh. So
The
loyal. But
loyalty.
like he also means well. But in a way he's trying, but not trying hard enough. And
Yes.
then lets Tamlin talk to him like that, which is not okay.
Yeah. Honestly, in reading this through again, because I keep trying so hard to like not go in with bias and like really make sure that like I'm reading the characters correctly. Like Lucian, I there was one line that I highlighted and he said, "Don't make me choose." And it was like you can tell that Lucian loves Feyre, like a sister, like a best friend, but he knows in the end he has to go with Tamlin. And it's so clear to me in this read that like he and Feyre are both just in a very abusive relationship with the same person. Like I don't know what it is about Tamlin's hard abs and that bandolier, but like he commands people and they feel like they owe him everything, and it makes me sad.
Yeah, because they
I
always refer
mean,
to Tamlin as like my Fire Lord.
like, I'll give it to Lucian that Tamlin was there for him when he really needed someone. Like, Tamlin took him in and helped him deal with a situation that was super terrible. But I just want him to step back and acknowledge that how Tamlin is acting. Like, he knows how Tamlin is acting is not okay, and he's choosing to be a bystander. And it's just so disappointing watching him choose to be a bystander to something he knows is wrong.
Yeah, and I think, like I think that's important though, Elena, is, like, does he at this point really know that it's wrong? Because I genuinely think that, like, Lucian believes that Tamlin is right, and I think that he might realize that, like, oh, like, maybe Tamlin could have done this a little differently, but I think overall he truly trusts that, like, Tamlin is someone to be followed at this point.
Yeah, like if
Maybe,
we're basing it off on Akatar, like he's doing what's best for the court, and that's following Tamlin. Like he's sorry to say, but he's not gonna follow Feyre, who was once human, who doesn't know,
um,
the traditions and the standards of Fey courts.
yeah. It's so interesting that that's the take because Tamlin's entire court is pressuring her to like call herself immortal and like view herself as Fae versus Reese immediately is calls her mortal and she's like, but I'm not immortal. And he's like, aren't you? So like they're judging her for being mortal, but also trying to like force her to fit into a box she doesn't fit into yet.
Get in the
But you
box, Barbie doll. Get in the box.
I think Lucian knows it's wrong. Like at least
Mm.
parts of it, like not teaching her about her powers. Like he clearly disagrees with Tamlin's decision, but he's just not going to do anything.
Well, he did bring
Different.
it up, like why don't we train her? And then Tamlin just like immediately just goes, no.
Yep.
But he could train her like behind Tam's back. Like he doesn't just need to blindly listen to whatever Tamlin says.
That's a
At this
loyal
point,
boy.
he's such a follower, and I think that even, like, up until the point that we're at, like, I think Lucian makes progress through the series to the point, like, at the end of Silver Flames, but, like, I really need to see him, like, take control. Like, you have a lot to offer. Like, Lucian's awesome, and I think that he's getting to that point, but yeah, that's definitely his, like, big character flaw is, like, he needs to stand up for himself and what he believes in and have more of a voice.
The way that Tamlin walked away after stealing the house, and then Lucian had to warn her, like, hey, it's pointless.
It hurts me every time that Lucian
Hmm.
leaves. Yeah. Like, Lucian, you should know, maybe even more than Tamlin, how much this bothers her. Like, you almost got spiked to death because Feyre can't read. Like, how do you not realize that this is, like, her absolute nightmare?
It doesn't even make sense. Like Tamlin's entire thing is wanting to keep her safe, locked in a little box. Why does he keep pressuring her to paint? Like he could have just as easily helped her learn to read under his like dumb protective box.
That is one of my favorite examples, Elena, honestly, because it would still keep her safe. It wouldn't do anything that would outwardly show like that there might be a war, that Feyre's like learning something. Teach the girl to read. Like, have enough care for the person you want to be your like life partner for centuries. Teach her how to read. It's not that
Get a
hard.
tutor to come in
Anything.
and get her to teach her how to read. Like
Ask Alice to do it. Like there are so many options and he doesn't. And it's just I get that Tamlin's also going through stuff. Again, like I really don't think that Tamlin is an awful person. It's just he has got some work to do and he is not for Feyre. Like ugh.
And it's not fair because, like, he has his own um, outlook or way to kind of like resolve his own trauma that we don't see because he's gone for days and weeks. And then Feyre's just stuck at home.
Yep. Just
also
Being a
plan a
zombie.
wedding. Paint. Just go be
Yeah.
a good wife. Not a high lady, because we don't have that. Just go be a good
And
my
he
lord's
doesn't
wife.
I don't think he's ever like checked in on her to see
No.
how she's doing, right?
Not
No.
once.
Also, he throws such a fit about Feyre having to leave to go hang out with Reese. But then, like, my interpretation is when she's gone with Reese, he's just at home trashing the house, throwing an absolute fit. But then when she's there, he's like, oh, time for me to leave. I don't need to hang out with my fiance. Like, bro, what are your priorities?
Yeah. It might not be fair of me, but I couldn't help but think, like, if Reese had her and Tamlin came and was like, I'm gonna take her for a week, he'd be like, I will murder you and everyone you love. Like, I
No
will, yeah, like, I will wreck worlds. Like, you're not taking her. And Tamlin is just like, can we make a deal? No? Okay, well, like, don't hurt her. Like, on your wedding day? Don't just, like, okay, don't hurt her much. Like,
Well, and the part that always gets me is then Feyre gets back and Tam immediately is like, so tell me everything about the night court.
nothing about her. How are you? Oh my God, you're safe. I missed you. I'm so sorry. Like, let me hold you. Like, tell me all the secrets.
In his defense, his first question is, are you okay? And then it's, tell me about the night court.
Yeah, the obligatory, are you okay? Great. Where are their strongholds? Oh, Tamlin.
Oh, that was
God.
really frustrating.
Yeah. He's just so
And she was,
oblivious.
yeah, and she was so excited to go home. Oh, that hurt my heart.
It doesn't take her long to realize that, like, it's better. And even that, there was one line that I highlighted about there was the dichotomy of Feyre's thinking about her wedding night and will she go spend it in Tamlin's room because they have separate rooms because that makes sense with someone that you love. And she's worried about if I stay the night in his room, will I wake up screaming because I don't know where I am? And she has that thought. And then when she stays for a week at the House of Wind, she wakes up and, like, you know, having one of her like midnight panic attacks. And then it's something like the room is so open and airy and the
Mhm.
windows like let in so much light. And like she talks about like how the bed is softer than what she's used to. And I was like, so already we're in a better place physically and mentally. Awesome. Tell me more about how you want to go home, Feyre.
And he makes sure that she eats.
One of the first things Reese says to her is, you've lost weight. Like, he's so concerned about her and trying so hard to like show it in a way that is appropriate for someone who doesn't know that they're mated to the person who's concerned about them.
Oh my God, the second time he goes to pick her up and she's lost even more weight and he asks Tamlin, do you even have food here?
Yes.
He's just like the best. And he makes mistakes, which makes him even better because it's like, oh my God, you're real perfect. Like, you're the real kind. I love it. Oh, okay. We went back to talking about Tamlin and Reese, which will happen at least 5 more times. But somebody else that I want to talk about is our favorite high priestess, Ianthe. What, we don't love her? She's like Feyre's best friend. She's so helpful.
I don't think I could list a one redeeming quality. Like, I don't think I could come up with one.
Yeah. And I will say, even my first time through this, at first I was like, oh, I'm so glad that Feyre has a girlfriend. She's coming on really strong. Like, I had like my questions in my mind even before the wedding. And it wasn't until the wedding with the red flowers that I was like, absolutely not. Like, do not like her. Something bad needs to happen to her. But like the number of things that I didn't even really pick up on the first time when Ianthe's like, oh yeah, I'm like a group of 12 high priestesses, but like everybody else hates me. Like, huge red flag. Or like, you know, oh yeah, like I just like to sleep with any guy that I really want any time of day or night. And I'm like, wow, how did I not like get the warning signs of how inconstant and awful she is?
What about during the war I ran away and wasn't here and let everyone else die?
Yeah, like, oh yeah, I heard about that part of Under the Mountain. Must have been fun. Oh, Ianthe. So bad. Yeah, I
Not a
mean, we
good
know what
friend.
happens. We know what happens to her, so there's no question about redemption arc for that one. But yeah, I just every single time I read this, I'm more and more surprised that immediately I wasn't like, nope, this is a bad one.
Do we ever learn more about the priestesses? Like later?
I don't think that we get like a good sense of the other high priestesses. I did like highlight that they all kind of like facilitate different parts of Prithian and that they're considered
Mm-hmm.
to be as important as the High Lords. But I don't think we've met any of the other ones yet.
Yeah. Okay, I saw that too. Like the line about them being just as important as the High Lords. And I was like, weird that they're just as important as the High Lords, but I don't recall any other than Ianthe. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's because the other ones are like actually good and they're just like doing their jobs quietly and unassumingly. Yeah, I think the most that we get with the priestesses is in the library, with like Clotho and everybody in Silver Flames. They're like the lower
Um
priestesses.
I can't figure out how much of Ianthe's stuff is intentional because I think a lot of it is, but I don't know like with the red, like Sarah told her no red roses and she did it anyway, but then later she like wears red and Feyre like freaks out about it and I'm like, was that intentional? I don't know.
I can't tell either. Jamie, I don't know if you've got an idea, but I paid really close attention to that. And Feyre does say like no red, and then Ianthe's like, ah, yeah, it could be like too close to Autumn Court. But then Feyre's like, okay, like whatever you want, like whatever
Yeah.
color. So I can't tell.
Yeah, I couldn't either. But that was something that I didn't like about her was that she went against what Feyre wanted, even though even after Feyre was like, okay, whatever you want to do, but didn't still consider that Feyre still didn't want red.
Yeah, out of the like 5 million other colors and variants of colors, you still went with red. Like, okay.
She is scared of Reese though, so because she ran away when he
Terrified.
showed up at the wedding.
Well, we get the scene of what happens with them later, which is super gross and uncomfortable. But with Reese and Ianthe. That comes later.
What happened again?
Well, we haven't read it yet. I mean, we've read it before, but when Ianthe like propositions
Oh,
Reese,
that's right. When yes, okay. I
yeah,
forgot about that.
because I like all of Reese's little like thinly veiled like, oh yeah, she's great. Yeah, we love her.
No one
Yeah,
really likes her except for Tamlin, and Tamlin grew up with her. I think that was one other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and Feyre makes a comment that all of Tamlin's friends are like fake people that like jabbing at each other. Like he just doesn't have a lot of good friends, and she's
Other than
a very bad
Lucian.
one. Lucian has some things to work through.
Lucian's getting there. He's getting there.
Yeah, I read the whole section just so much waiting for the scene when Feyre like is forced back to the spring court and just decides to use it as an excuse to like mess with Ianthe endlessly. I was like so excited for this girl to get what she deserves.
Yeah, Ianthe is like actually the worst. Like King of Hybern, Ianthe? Like I think that's the hierarchy. Unless we have to throw Amarantha in there too, then I guess Amarantha's slightly worse than Ianthe. I was like, I would love to hear the case for Ianthe being worse than Amarantha.
Not quite. Can't quite get there. Amarantha did some things.
What else did you guys love or hate from this section?
We got to see Feyre's powers develop a little bit.
Hmm.
So the shield was one of them. I think we saw claws at one point.
Hmm.
Do you think that was from Tamlin or?
Yeah. Yeah, her shape-shifting powers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't pick up on in ACOTAR was that Tamlin shapeshifted the sentries into wolves.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just like he could just shapeshift himself, not do it to other people.
Yeah, he can project it with his magic. Which he should really do more often. Like, that's a cool power. Like, who wants to be a fox for the day? Yeah. Yeah. I love Feyre's powers and like how they progress throughout the story. And I know that one critique that people have of like Feyre's character is that she's like so badass and then all of a sudden just like marries the High Lord and has a kid and like maybe won't do anything else after that. And like I'm okay with whatever she chooses because every woman should be able to choose what they want to do with their lives. But I still wonder like if these powers are gonna like be used in a bigger way later on. I don't know what you guys think.
I'm the people that doesn't love what happens to Feyre's character at the end of this, but that's not because like I don't think she should like do whatever she wants. It's more that it just feels plot devicey to me how she has a kid and then can't help it all during Silver Flames. Yeah.
I still think it's going to be different. I think her being pregnant, I hope, is going to be different than her being a parent because I just don't see her and Reese being like, "Okay, everybody like go fight for us." Like I don't see that.
I think she can do it all.
Yeah.
And Reese could be like a stay-at-home daddy.
Aw. That'd be
Stay-at-home
cute.
daddy.
Because like she has all the powers of the High Lord. She has more, I guess, more reason to be high. What was it? High king. High king.
High,
What was the
high
theory
king and
again?
high queen. Yeah.
High queen. Yes, he has
Yeah.
more power to be a high queen, and kind of more powerful than Reese, in my opinion. If
At
she has
least
all the
equal.
powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that I totally glossed over the like high king, high queen stuff that was mentioned in ACOTAR. Because that used to be a thing. And then like Ianthe, or not Ianthe, the other person that we love, Amarantha, wanted to be High Queen again. Because I remember in Silver Flames when Amryn brings up the whole like this is worthy of being a High King, and Reese is like, no. I was like, wait, we do that? Like that's a thing. So I caught that this time around. Like, oh, it was a thing at one point, and maybe it will be
Mhm.
again in the future. But, so I keep picturing like the like Avengers assemble. Like there's got to be some sort of big fight, at the end where everybody like comes together. And I just like I don't think Feyre is going to just like stay at home while that's happening. Like I don't picture that. I just picture
Yeah,
her
I
and
don't
Reese
either.
being like, we need to like be part of this. We can't just stand by while like the fate of Prithian hangs in the balance. They're just gonna like hand Nyx to somebody and be like, okay, we love you. Bye. It'll be great.
Alice, mommy and daddy gotta go to work.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Maybe that's how Alice comes back because I desperately want Alice to come back. And I know we've talked about that, but I'm gonna keep
She
like
was
looking to
very
see if I missed
quiet.
something.
Yeah. She maybe had like one line that was like off screen or something when she handed her to Moore, but it's been very quiet. And I don't know, like I think she cares about yeah, she definitely cares about Feyre, but it's just been
Oh.
like very quiet and like nothing against Hamlin.
Alice has one of my favorite moments in like the whole series in ACOWAR when Feyre's like back pretending to be with Tamlin and Alice like knows. She just knows. And I forget exactly what she says and I'll bring it up and fangirl about it again when we read it. But it's just like that moment where she's just like, we will be behind you no matter what. And like they have that little like moment where she knows that Feyre belongs in the night court. And just every time I'm like, Alice,
Oh,
I love you. Yeah, she'll be Nyx's babysitter until Reese and Feyre get back.
that's cute. I like that idea.
We just gotta go find her in the summer court somewhere.
When you say the Avengers assemble, who is everybody?
Like Cassian and Nesta and other friends that we might find in other books that are coming somewhere.
In the series.
In the series, yeah.
In the series.
We introduce new characters like every book, so you just never know who's coming. You never know. You should stay on your toes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, like I wouldn't feel as long as it's done well and there's like a good reason and one of them or maybe both of them don't join, I could understand, but I just don't think that that's how it's going to happen.
I don't either.
I want to see more Feyre, like when Rhys like first mentions her powers and he says like you could freeze like, whole army. Like yeah, let's do that.
That's hot.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm so impressed by the careful writing of this book. Because I know, and I think I've said this before, but I went into this book the first time I was fairly sure that like Feyre and Rhys were going to like have something, but I thought that it was going to then switch to her being like, yes, I love Tamlin through this experience. And then Rhys was going to be a sad boy Rhys. So I was glad that it didn't end up like that. But just the little one-liners that just so artistically show like how upset he is and how much he cares about her. And even like the subconscious stuff about how much she feels at home in the Night Court and like wants to be with him and not Tamlin. Yeah. So
We already see that shift in the end of part 1 where she asks Tamlin if she can go with him. And he blatantly says no. But when she asks Rhys, open arms.
Right. And it's just, you need, and like, I guess there are different relationships for different people, but like Feyre is a person that like, she wants a partnership. Like she wants to be trusted and respected. And like Tamlin just doesn't do that for her. And there's a huge difference between protecting someone and keeping them safe versus trusting them in their abilities and them knowing what they can and can't handle. And Tamlin just doesn't do her the justice of trusting her when she says like, yeah, I can handle it, or I can do more, let me help. Doesn't care.
Figure it out for his next relationship.
Yeah, and like I do genuinely think that there is a next relationship for Tamlin. Like I think that already through the series Sarah has done a great job. The two of you's faces just slowly morphing. I don't know who he's going to end up with, but I think it will be someone, and I think that we've already seen Tamlin make even incremental progress toward being a better person. He is not in a good place at the end of Silver Flames, but like we have seen how he is a good person. He makes good choices, and I think he has to find someone that fits him and that he can be a better person for. And it may or may not be Elaine, but
it just seems like he wants someone who is submissive and like fits in his little box to control and protect.
Yeah.
And I don't know who would want that.
I think part of his growing will be him realizing that he can't just have someone that lives in a box all the time.
And I think also like realizing that that isn't really what he wants, because like he loved like Feyre's energy in the first book and like, was constantly caught off guard by like, oh, like I didn't realize that humans had like passion for things, and like he loved that. And I think that Tamlin just needs to like get out of his own way and realize like I can't smother somebody in a castle and expect them to be the person that I want them to be.
It sounds like he wants a human. Like another human.
Your mind
it sounds
so
like that's part of
like a human named Briar.
My mind went to maybe we'll get a Twilight moment where Rhys and Feyre will have a daughter.
Please no.
That's even worse than him ending up with her sister. I don't love that. Oh, Renesmee.
Oh, no. Spoiler alert.
I mean, is it? If you haven't read them, you probably shouldn't. You heard it here first. Sorry if you like Twilight. I did also at one point in my life.
I did too.
We all had a Twilight phase. And if you're still in it, that's okay. Because you know what? You can love what you love. And this is a safe
I
space.
feel like most people that like Twilight though will even admit that was not a great like it was a twist.
Let us know how you feel.
Yeah. We'll talk about Twilight. It's been like 20 years since I read it, but like I remember most of it. Man. Yeah. I'm excited for the next chunk of chapters when we like really get into it. And like
which
start
is a
doing
big
all of
chunk.
the training. Yes, it is a very big chunk. So we are doing this by parts. So we're going to do part 2 for next week. So read along with us. Come chat about everything that happens with us. Yeah, it's a good one. Any last thoughts? Did I forget about anything in my extreme desire to just talk about Resand? Oh, is that all of part 2? That's a huge chunk. That's a good chunk of book.
It's a big chunk.
What chapter is it, Jamie? I'm literally scrolling through.
You're scrolling in a book? Scrolling.
Chapter 14 to end of...
Oh, I found it. 51.
51.
Woo! Okay.
Yeah.
14 through 51 for next week? Awesome.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm gonna eat this up like
But
candy.
I'm so excited to visit Summer Court.
Yes. Oh,
I love that scene. Those scenes.
Yeah. We'll talk about it then. But I do love the Summer Court. That's some good stuff. Awesome. Well, come chat with us in the Discord. We could talk about this all day long. And thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.